In the studios this morning, in fact, the first candidate in the latest round of candidate interviews is Joe Shipley. Now, we're going to be looking at the races for Yamhill County Commissioner and Yamhill County Sheriff in the next couple of weeks. There will be some mornings where we won't have interviews, but a lot of mornings that will. We wanted to schedule these interviews so that we could do them right before the ballots come out for the May primary. So you have a fresh idea in your mind about what the candidates are thinking. Also, since we've had them here, I believe in November was when we had the candidates in last time on KLYC, we want you to have a chance to hear from them now in case, there's issues that have been coming up throughout the summer, throughout the spring, I should say. It kind of feels like summer. And we wanted to get them in here and talk to them once again. Joe Shipley is running for Yamhill County Sheriff. Joe, glad to have you in the KLYC studios.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So what are the issues in the race? As you're looking at running for sheriff, what are the issues?
While I'm out talking to folks, seems like the major issues that are coming up are Second Amendment rights and what the sheriff's office is going to do to protect the citizens' rights to keep and bear arms. And then, of course, budget, and with all the issues in Polk County and some of the other counties having to shut down and reduce their services, there's some concern if Yamhill County is going to face those same issues.
Let's talk about that. Now Polk County is one of our neighbors, and they have come out and they're only patrolling deputies 10 hours a day on county roads. And so I've talked to a number of folks in Polk County that are a bit concerned about that. What is the situation in Yamhill County?
Yamhill County is very stable. Sheriff Crabtree, when he took over as sheriff, made a commitment that we were going to be fiscally responsible, and he's worked real hard, and all the deputies and the sergeants and captains and everybody within the sheriff's office has worked hard with him to cut costs and reduce what overtime costs we have and training costs, and we've moved away from dependency on O&C dollars, timber revenue, and other outside funding sources that were not stable. And the sheriff's office and the jail are strictly funded through general fund dollars now. And those funds that were coming in through timber revenue and jail bed rentals and things like that now go to other sources that are not funding people.
Why vote for Joe Shipley instead of the other two Tims, in Casey, Tim Spencer?
Well, I think that there's a few things that separate me from the others, and of course the first thing is my name. I'm the only Joe, so it's easy to remember. The other thing is we're all qualified candidates. Tim Swenson's he's a great guy. He's done a lot with the sheriff's office in the 14 years that he's been here. Tim Casey's a great guy. He's done quite a bit, and I've been here for 22 years. I began my service to this community when I was 15 years old. I have a mid-management certification. I've supervised and managed every program within the sheriff's office that I can think of. The only thing, or one of the things that separates me is not just the training experience and knowledge that I have, but it's also my vision for the future. We can't continue to do law enforcement in 2014 and beyond with 1960s, 1970s mentality. We have to look at the mistakes of our past so we don't repeat them. And my vision for the future is to bring education of our youth and prevention for our elderly back to the sheriff's office and make it an integral part of what we do. My platform is a balanced, common sense approach to law enforcement through fiscal and community responsibility. And the balance being education, prevention, and enforcement. There has to be a balance there. With that balance, I think we'll have less enforcement through better education and prevention programs. The fiscal responsibility is not only taking the dollars that we're given from the commissioners and using them wisely, but also looking for those outside funding sources that are stable but not becoming dependent on them. not replacing general fund dollars, but augmenting general fund dollars.
Let's talk about your vision for the future. It sounds like you're keying more towards prevention than incarceration enforcement. Obviously, that will continue with the sheriff's office. Can you give us some idea about what that looks like going forward? Can you give us some of the ideas about what you would do if elected?
Well, we used to be involved in prevention programs and education programs back when I first started. There was McGruff, there was DARE, there was other programs. If you look at what's facing our elderly, and I use our elderly because they're the biggest target in this area of fraud, identity theft, and things of that nature, I feel like, my grandmother's elderly, and she's faced with these things, and she'll ask me questions about what do I do here, what do I do there, and if she's asking questions, then there's got to be others out there that just don't know, and maybe through prevention programs and education programs for those type of things, we can help avoid some of those pitfalls that they fall into and the traps that they get into with fraud and identity theft.
Who's going to man those prevention programs?
What I have vision is volunteer help and non-sworn, non-certified personnel. There's retired teachers in our community. There's retired firefighters, retired law enforcement. There's people that want to get involved on a volunteer basis. I have commitments from some retired teachers that they want to get involved and participate and help design these prevention and education programs and then help administer them as well.
Now, this has not been proposed here locally, but I did see it on the internet. I think it was someplace back in the Midwest where there was the sheriff's office that was really strapped for funding. And they were looking at volunteers for such key things as processing evidence and taking statements and so on and so forth. I haven't seen volunteerism taken to that level as well. What's your opinion on that? Now, nobody's mentioned it in this race, but it's out there in some other sheriff's departments in the U.S.
I started as a volunteer when I was 15, and I wholeheartedly believe in volunteerism. The issue when it comes to processing evidence and taking statements, you're treading on some dangerous waters there as far as training and certifications and education when it comes to doing law enforcement type services that require a police officer or deputy to do those. One of our evidence people in our sheriff's office is a non-sworn, non-certified person, but she doesn't come out and process evidence. I'm open to the idea. Washington County has a program where they have crime techs that come out to a burglary and process the crime scene for fingerprints and things and getting them trained, but they're paid. They're not volunteer. I think if you're going to have something in that area, they would need to be paid staff on duty so that you know that they're going to be there and that they're trained and capable of doing the job.
It would seem like a defense attorney could really tear that apart if they got him on the stand and tried to draw into question the credibility of the evidence or the other evidence gathering. Was it tainted, etc.?
Oh yeah, defense attorneys they'll look for flaws in the system and then they'll try to capitalize on those.
Now, we do want to mention, Thad, if you're listening, we are going to take your report here. We'll pause for a minute and take the Thad Brill morning stock market update. So give us a call, and we'll take a break here with Joe Shipley and return to the conversation in just a moment. So waiting for that call. Thad Brill in the morning stock market update here on KLYC. Budget. Let's talk about fiscal responsibility. We talked about that a little bit before we went on the air. Your views on that, demonstrate how you stand and what some of your values and priorities are.
Well, everything I've done with the sheriff's office, I've tried to reduce costs. In 1994, we were spending a lot of money on overtime. We had a lot of sick leave usage, and I, along with Steve Warden and another deputy, started working on scheduling. When I was in the Army, I went through a scheduling school, if we want to call it that, to learn how to prepare schedules and staff appropriately. And through that, I did some studies, or pulled some studies from the RCMP and the FBI on scheduling, and found that the 412 schedule would have been the best schedule for us to go to reduce overtime and sick leave and things that were affecting us at that time. I did a proposal, presented it to Sheriff Vasquez. He bought off on it on a trial basis that we would try it, but if it didn't reduce overtime and it didn't reduce the sick leave usage, we would go back to the 5/8s. And we stayed on the 412s until shortly after Sheriff Crabtree took over, and we tried to go back to 410s. Excuse me. And during that time that we were on 410s, the overtime usage went up, sick leave usage went up, and we quickly went back to a 312 schedule. And I understand why Sheriff Crabtree wanted to try something different. He didn't like deputies being gone for 4 days in a row. It made it difficult for citizens to contact them for follow-up and things of that nature. And so the 312 schedule effectively does the same thing as the 412 by reducing overtime and sick leave usage, but it brings you back to work a little earlier so citizens don't feel like they're put on hold for so long. Then I've done other things that to save money as far as when it comes to training, offering incentives to deputies to trade their training time on their days off for time off on their work days rather than take it as overtime. And it's just little things like that that add up. And then we have to be as responsible to the citizens as we can possibly be, and we need to be transparent when it comes to the budget. If a citizen wants to know what we're spending our money on, we should be able to open the books and say right here, and be confident that we are being as fiscally responsible as anybody can be.
What are we using now? What shifts are we using?
It's a combination. The contract cities are on a 410 schedule, and the rural patrol is on a 312. And then in the jail, they're working, it's referred to as the Hillsborough plan. It's a 2-week incremental schedule. It's a 12-hour shift, but it's 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off.
Does that make it hard? Are there any cross usage of deputies among the different areas, or not?
Working the different schedules from the jail to patrol, we don't have the ability to cross over. We have some dual certified deputies that are certified in both areas, but we don't have that ability to cross over as readily because of the scheduling.
How many employees are there in the sheriff's office?
I believe there is 68 or 70.
Just right about 70 degrees.
Yes.
70 people.
Yes.
Would you make any changes in the scheduling?
Not right now. There's some other things that I think need to happen first before we start changing the scheduling. I like the 12-hour schedule, and I think the deputies like it. And if it's working and it's effective and it's saving us money, then I would continue the practice.
You speak about changes, and there are some things you've hinted kind of at some other changes you'd make. Can you tell us what some of those would be?
I believe that there is the ability to bring back the correction tech. When I was hired by Sheriff Vasquez, I was hired as a control room technician, and my job was to do records keeping and run the control panel in the jail. And I think that position saves a lot of money. That savings can be transferred back to the floor staff and put more deputies on the floor, and then also transferred to patrol by moving deputies from corrections to patrol.
So that would not be don't they currently have a control room tech, or how would it change over how they're doing it now?
Right now a deputy works in the control room. And I believe that we could bring back a corrections tech and then add the responsibility of the booking process and have that corrections tech work in the booking room. Sheriff Vasquez was moving towards that back in the early 90s, and we were kind of headed that way. When he retired, it all switched, and those non-sworn, non-certified positions became deputies' positions under Sheriff Hand, which, of course, increased the cost of those positions by, I believe it was close to 100%. I don't know the exact numbers, but an example would be you take a $2,000 a month employee, and in January they were making $2,000 a month, and then in February they were made deputies and making $4,000 a month.
What about now? I know there's some talk with the county commissioners, I believe, this fall about consolidating juvenile and community corrections departments in Yamhill County this fall, strengthening the justice system, being more cost-effective in money. Do you favor that move?
I'm kind of torn on that. If it falls under the sheriff's office, it's one of those things where either we need to take total control of it, or we need to be completely out of it, because you can't have split control of an organization and have it be successful. It just seems like you're headed in two different directions.
Don't know who your boss is.
Yeah.
Too many chiefs and not enough Indians?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. What are you hearing from the electorate out there? You've been out campaigning for several months now. What are people saying?
For the most part, a lot of people like the idea of bringing back education and prevention, and they like my platform as far as what I hope to achieve. They like that whole idea of balance within the sheriff's office and what we do. Some of the things that are hot topics are, the Second Amendment rights, and of course, with all the sign issues going on, there's the First Amendment rights of the Hatch Act, and then with everything that's going on in Polk County, it's always budget how is our budget, and what do you hope to do as the sheriff to make sure that we're stable.
One of the questions I've got, we had I was talking to a county commission candidate the other day who was doing a ride-along with a Yamhill deputy, and they had to go and they had to cover a call or answer a call for service in Polk County. And the thought crossed my mind is, if that continues to happen on a more often or more frequent basis, would you be in favor of saying, we're going to have to, and I hate to put the word out there that, you're not going to be covering those calls, but if it comes to a situation where we're expending resources in Yamhill County to cover Polk County and leave our citizens not with as much coverage, what would your position be there? And how would you determine that it's becoming a problem?
Well, we've had a mutual aid agreement with Polk County and Marion County and Tillamook County and every county around us for as long as I've worked here. We've helped each other and covered each other, and we would continue that. It's just good working practice, and they help us on a regular basis with cover and helping us cover calls when we're tied up. And I don't see that changing. As far as Polk County's need for service replacing our need, that would never happen. Yamhill County would have priority, and if there's things going on in Yamhill County that need to be taken care of, we would take care of those first. If we're able to, we would assist them wherever we can. We've all got to work together, especially in hard times like this.
Understand. AM 1260 KLYC, glad you're with us today, and let's continue our conversation with Joe Shipley. And Joe is one of three candidates running for Yamhill County Sheriff, and we were talking about one of the concerns I had was possibility of Yamhill deputies having to cover Polk County and leaving Yamhill County strapped for service. But a point that you raised was we're kind of all in this boat together, and I would hate to see that, because there might be times where we need help and they've got a deputy on, and we need their help. So it goes both ways.
Exactly, and we've done it for years. And a lot of people don't realize, but Polk County went through a similar thing back in the early to mid-'90s where they were reduced in staff, and we ended up covering a lot of things along that Highway 18 corridor and sometimes a little bit into the Highway 22 area to help them out. OSP, I think, has dedicated troops to Polk County to help them during the times that they're not on. So that need for us to help cover isn't going to be as great. There's plenty of troopers out there now that back during that other time, I don't think there was as many troops on the road, so we help them a little more. The other thing is that Grand Ronde has their own police force now, and they are helping cover a lot of those things in the Grand Ronde area that we would have covered because that's where a lot of the activity is back in the past. So our need to help them isn't as great as what it was back then, and we all survived then.
What does the future of law enforcement look like? We're looking at, of course, tight budgets. You were wanting to talk about more prevention, get ahead of the curve instead of having to deal with incarceration and issues in enforcement afterwards. Hopefully, if we can help some of the younger people maybe make some better choices, we won't be dealing with them on the other side. What does the future of law enforcement look like? What are some of the challenges ahead?
Well, I think the changes in laws are going to be huge over the next, I think in the next 2 years, but at least the next 10 years with medical marijuana and dispensaries and the possibility, it's a very real possibility of marijuana becoming legal in the state of Oregon. And that's
for recreational use maybe.
Yes, just like alcohol. And those are some of the topics that we've addressed in the forums that we've had. And we could dig our heels in the sand and say, we're not going to allow it and we're going to fight it. And I was a narcotics investigator with YSENT, the Yamhill County Interstate Narcotics Team, for over 4 years, and worked marijuana cases and meth cases and all of those. And I teach narcotics investigation at the police academy, and I know firsthand the negative effects of marijuana use. But I'm not so naive to think that we can stop it. We can't. There's no way that we are going to stop the use of marijuana. It's been happening for longer than I've been on this earth, so why would I think that I can stop it for the future? I think what we need to do is we need to regulate, and we need to try and control dispensaries and put moratoriums on them until we get this law figured out. And then, but we need to, that's a Band-Aid as far as I'm concerned for the big problem. And that's that if you look out in the horizon, marijuana is going to be legal. And we need to start doing things now to prepare ourselves. We need to start passing laws in the state, county ordinances that govern and regulate the use of marijuana for when it is legal, how it's sold, how it's used, where it's used. Colorado ran into a problem where one day it's illegal, the next day it's legal, but there was no regulation on how old you could be to smoke it, where you could smoke it, and there was reports of school kids sitting in a bus stop waiting to catch the bus to school smoking marijuana. And I don't think that we want to find ourselves in that position, and we need to start now preparing ourselves for the future.
So you use the word moratorium. Do you think we should put moratoriums in place to restrict the use until the laws are figured out?
Well, moratorium is a good tool to delay the inevitable. We are not prepared to govern, regulate, and control dispensaries, and it's kind of one of those things of once you let the beast go, it's hard to rein it back in. So I think that a moratorium is being properly used by our commissioners and the sheriff and those that are in control now to say, whoa, wait a minute, let's walk slowly through this and make sure we're doing it right so that we don't have to come back and try to catch the beast and bring it back in. And that's what a moratorium is for. It's not to stop it. It's never going to stop it forever. It's just to delay it so that you can get some control and regulate the use and locations of these dispensaries. We don't want dispensaries next door to the school or to the church or to the ice cream parlor or the swimming pool. That's not what the lawmakers and the people that voted for this, that's not what they envisioned when they did it. But there's nothing stopping somebody that wants to make big money from doing that other than moratorium and regulations.
If the situations change, maybe we have some stories where, some maybe kids lose their lives because they're eating medibles or whatever the case may be, and the tide turns and public sentiment goes towards more restrictive, in fact, outlawing marijuana dispensaries, which probably won't happen. But if it does, what would your position be? Are you in favor of medical marijuana dispensaries?
Like I said, I've spent the majority of my career working narcotics and teaching narcotics and investigation, and I believe that everybody without fail is affected by marijuana use or drug use in this country, whether it's higher insurance rates, higher medical costs, higher costs for goods and services throughout the community, theft, other crimes that are associated with drug use. I'm adamantly opposed to drug use, but I'm not naive. I'm not going to sit back and say, well, it's evil, it's bad, and we got to stop it. We will never stop it. We can't. The U.S. government has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars on the drug war, and all we have is receipts for the billions and billions and billions of dollars that we've spent. We can't stop it. So we have to look at, okay, we're not going to stop this thing, so how do we control it? How do we best protect our citizens from the negative effects of it? People are going to make bad choices. We need to educate them young so that maybe they won't make those bad choices. And then there needs to be treatment programs and other enforcement programs to try to help get these people off of it when they choose to get off it, because unless somebody wants to, they're not going to.
Okay, we're coming close to the top of the hour. Let's give you 2 minutes. Why vote for Joe Shipley for Yamhill County Sheriff?
Well, I think the main reason is that I am qualified. I am educated, experienced, but most importantly, I have a vision for the future, and that's to bring a balanced, common-sense approach to law enforcement while being fiscally responsible and responsible to our community. The needs of our community are going to change throughout time, and we need to be responsible to the community to provide the services that are demanded of us as times change. And I think I'm the only candidate that has a good, solid approach and vision for that future.
Do you have a Facebook page or website? How do people contact you?
There is a website page. It's www.joeshipleyforsheriff.com. There is a Facebook page that is Shipley for Sheriff 2015. And I have a cell phone number, 503-435-9965, I believe.
But you can check the Facebook or the website.
Yes.
Okay. Joe, this will probably be the last time we have you in here for an interview before the election, so good luck, and thanks for visiting with us this morning on KLYC.
All right. Well, thank you.
If you want to listen to this interview again, we're going to have it posted on our website. Just go to News and Recent Interviews, and we'll probably have a special tab somewhere on the website, probably in the news section, maybe on the front page as well, where you can go to the candidate interviews if you're specifically looking for those. So watch for that, KLYC.us. Joe, have a great day.
All right, thank you.
AM 1260 KLYC.